everyone. Buckle up, because today we're diving into a story that's going to leave you shaking your head.
Absolutely.
The Kids for Cash scandal. This went down in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And it's about two judges, Mark Ciavarella and Michael Conahan.
Yeah, they basically turned the juvenile justice system into their own personal ATM.
We've got court testimonies and even some podcast episodes that lay out exactly how they did it.
It's wild.
So let's start with Judge Ciavarella. His story is really something.
Yeah, it's almost like a movie.
I mean, this is a guy who got in trouble with the law when he was a teenager.
Really?
Yeah, like stole a convertible at 15.
Wow.
But then years later, he becomes this super strict judge.
Tough on crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He campaigned on cracking down on juvenile delinquency.
It's like he went full circle.
You know, it makes you wonder if his own past kind of pushed him to be so harsh.
Yeah, like he was overcompensating or something?
Maybe. But the voters ate it up.
I guess.
They put him right on the county court. But things get messy when Ciavarella sees the River Street Juvenile Detention Center for the first time.
What a dump that place was.
It was a total nightmare.
Yeah, like vermin running around, mold everywhere.
Peeling paint, the whole 9 yards. Imagine being a kid sent there.
It's awful.
And Ciavarella, with his whole punishment is the answer thing.
Right.
Well, instead of pushing to make things better.
He saw dollar signs.
Pretty much. Especially when Michael Conahan shows up.
Oh, this guy.
Conahan was a powerful judge.
Very and shady.
And he had this idea.
A solution.
To build a private juvenile detention center. A for-profit one.
Big red flag right there.
Right. Because now you've got this system where they make more money when more kids get locked up.
Instead of helping them stay out of trouble.
And they needed a couple of other players to pull this off.
Let me guess. Shady characters.
Totally. There was Robert Powell, the investor, with tons of money.
Of course.
And Robert Miracle, the builder, who was good friends with Ciavarella.
Ah, I see where this is going.
So finder's fees are normal in real estate, right?
Sure.
But Miracle offered Ciavarella almost $1 million.
Whoa.
Just to bring him into the deal.
$1 million. That's not normal.
Yeah, it stinks, right? And then Ciavarella, maybe feeling guilty,
Or just being smart.
decided to split the money with Conahan.
Ah, so now they're both in on it.
Up to their necks. And, you know, Ciavarella was having money problems at the time.
Really?
Yeah, so that probably made him even more willing to go along with it.
Makes sense.
But even with the judges on board, there was this big problem getting the money to actually build the place.
So the whole scheme could fall apart right there.
Exactly. But Conahan, he always had a plan.
Oh, boy.
Picture this. It's Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Powell, the investor, is freaking out.
Worried about his money.
And Conahan, calm as can be, says, I've got this.
Oh.
He promised Powell something no one else could.
Let me guess. A constant stream of kids to fill the detention center.
Bingo. He basically said, I'll use my power as a judge to make sure you always have customers.
Wow. Talk about abuse of power.
It's chilling, right? He turned the courtroom into a pipeline.
Straight to their for-profit prison.
So how did they actually make this happen?
Well, that's a story for part 2.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
Can't wait.
Okay, so they had this profit motive, right?
Yeah.
But how did it actually work in Ciavarella's courtroom?
Well, it was pretty systematic, honestly.
Like, did he just give out harsher sentences?
It's worse than that, actually.
Oh, no.
He made it almost impossible for kids to avoid going to detention.
Seriously?
Yeah. Imagine you're like a 15-year-old.
Okay.
Standing in front of this judge.
You'll be terrified.
Absolutely. Scared, confused.
Probably don't even have a lawyer.
A lot of them didn't. Parents didn't always know
Oh, wow.
that they had the right to one.
So these kids were basically set up to fail.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Ciavarella would pressure them.
To do what?
To give up their right to a lawyer.
No way.
And just plead guilty. Even if they didn't understand the charges.
That's awful.
He would talk over them, dismiss their explanations.
Ugh.
Just created this really intimidating atmosphere.
So were the punishments, like, super harsh?
That's the crazy part. We're not talking about serious crimes here.
Really?
These were kids getting caught smoking weed.
Oh, wow.
Or getting in fights at school.
Okay.
Even posting dumb stuff on MySpace.
MySpace. That brings me back.
Right. But seriously, they were getting detention for that kind of thing.
Detention for a MySpace post? You've got to be kidding.
Nope. It shows how little Ciavarella cared.
About what?
About fairness. Or the kids themselves.
Yeah.
There was this one case, a 15-year-old girl.
Okay.
She made like a funny MySpace page about her principal.
I did stuff like that.
Right. but they considered it harassment.
Oh, come on.
And she got sent to detention without a lawyer.
That's insane.
It's like he was trying to punish them, not help them. He'd always go for the harshest option.
Which was?
Detention. In those for-profit centers he was getting money from.
Wow.
It's sickening.
I bet this had a huge impact on these kids.
Oh, absolutely. Teenagers are already going through so much.
Yeah.
And then to be treated like criminals,
Right.
locked up, it's traumatizing.
What kind of effects did it have?
Lots of them ended up with anxiety, depression,
Achievements.
PTSD, even suicidal thoughts.
Awful. And it was all just to make a buck.
Exactly. Greed, corrupting people in power.
And we can't forget Conahan.
Right. He was the brains behind the whole thing.
Making sure Ciavarella always had kids to send away.
Just as guilty.
So they had this whole operation going. How did it finally end?
Well, people started talking.
You mean the victims?
Victims, families, even some lawyers and probation officers.
They were brave to speak up.
Oh, yeah, especially in a small town like that.
Makes sense. What did they do?
They started rimming concerns, talking to reporters.
Ah, so the media got involved.
Big time. Local journalists started digging into it,
That's how it always goes.
exposing what Ciavarella was doing.
So that's when the FBI stepped in.
Yep. They launched a full investigation.
And I bet they found a ton of evidence.
Oh, mountains of it.
Like what?
Financial records showing money going to the judges.
Of course.
And the court transcripts. They were damning.
How so?
They showed how Ciavarella ignored all the rules, forced kids to plead guilty, gave out crazy sentences.
They couldn't deny it.
Nope. It was an open and shut case.
Unbelievable. They really thought they'd get away with it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
So what happened? Did they go to trial?
Well, in 2009, they were charged with some serious stuff.
Like what?
Racketeering, bribery, money laundering.
Wow.
Racketeering is basically using your position for illegal activities.
So they were running the courtroom like a mafia.
Pretty much. And the evidence was so strong.
That they confessed.
They took a plea deal.
To avoid a longer sentence, I bet.
Exactly. But they still got hit hard. Ciavarella got 28 years.
28 years.
Yeah. Conahan got 17.
Still a long time.
Yeah. And they had to pay millions of dollars back to the victims.
Wow. That's something, at least.
Right. They were held accountable.
But it doesn't fix what happened.
No, of course not.
It's a bigger problem than just these two guys.
Exactly. It shows how messed up the system can be.
When money gets involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how to prevent this from happening again.
So what happened to the kids who were sent away?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about in the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds heavy.
It is. But there are some inspiring stories, too.
Okay, I'm ready when you are. It's hard to think about all this and not feel for those kids.
Absolutely. They were just pawns in this whole scheme.
They had their lives turned upside down.
And for what? So these judges could get rich.
It's sickening. What happened to them after everything came out?
Well, a lot of them are adults now, obviously.
Right.
And they're still dealing with the consequences.
Like what?
It's tough to get a job when you have a record.
Makes sense.
Even if it was later overturned.
Yeah, people still see it.
Exactly. And just imagine the stigma.
People judging you for something you didn't even do.
Right. Plus the emotional scars. A lot of them have anxiety, depression.
PTSD.
Oh, definitely. It's a form of trauma, being unjustly imprisoned.
Especially as
when you're already figuring things out.
And then to find out it was all based on lies.
And greed. That the people you're supposed to trust are the ones who hurt you.
It's like a fundamental betrayal.
It is. But there is some good news.
Oh.
A lot of those victims, they didn't just stay silent.
They fought back?
Yeah. They told their stories, demanded justice.
That's amazing.
It took a lot of courage.
Especially going up against powerful people like those judges.
Yeah, absolutely. But they made a difference.
How so?
Well, thousands of those convictions were eventually overturned.
That's huge.
The records were cleared.
Thank goodness.
And there was a class action lawsuit. They got millions of dollars in a settlement.
That's something, I guess.
Right. It's not about the money, though.
No, of course not. How do you put a price on something like that?
Exactly. But it's a way of acknowledging the harm that was done.
And hopefully preventing it from happening again.
Right. This whole case, it really sparked a debate.
About the juvenile justice system.
Yeah. People started asking tough questions.
Like what?
Like, what's the goal here? Is it punishment or rehabilitation?
That's a big one.
And how do we make sure judges aren't abusing their power?
It's scary to think it can happen so easily.
It is. But that's why we need to be aware of these things.
So we can speak up.
Exactly. Advocate for change, hold people accountable.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It's a story that needs to be told.
And it's a reminder that justice is fragile.
It is. We all have to do our part to protect it.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Of course. It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has inspired you to think critically about the systems that affect our lives.
And to speak up for what's right.
Because justice for everyone should always be the goal.
Couldn't agree more.